can't see me.
Boa tarde, pessoal. Sejam bem-vindos a mais uma sessão comentada do XVI Fantaspoa. Estaremos falando agora sobre o filme Precário. Ele está disponível na plataforma Darkflix. Ele pode ser assistido até domingo que vem, dia 2 de agosto. E essa sessão conta com o apoio especial da Prana Filmes, a quem agradecemos muito. Estamos aqui com a diretora de arte, Louise Franco, e o diretor do filme, Wes Terray. Am I saying your name right? It's Terray?
Yes, that is right. Thanks.
Perfect. So, I think that we can start talking about the film in general. For me, it's quite a peculiar film. Since I first saw it, I honestly fell in love with it because it's an adventure film, but it also has a very strong onirical, let's say, epic taking place. It's all together.
Yeah, it's where to even start? It's well, thank you for saying that. It's taken a long time to get it finished, but we're really happy with sort of having followed a certain line carefully to arrive at just the right type of dreamlike tone. And you're right, it sort of starts in that vague 1960s adventure story, but it felt like the most exciting thing to do would be to let it kind of, as the adventure sort of sprawls on, to let it grow and take up as much space as we could do within the limits of our loft space where we were building it. That was really the only thing stopping us from letting it grow larger.
Yes, in that sense. Where did you shoot it? Try to explain it to people.
I'm sorry, how?
Where did you shoot the film?
Well, we're talking to you from Berkeley, California, the East Bay of San Francisco in California. And there was my loft space, which is really just one large open living room. And then there's a kitchen and a bedroom. And that was the studio where we decided where I'd wake up each morning and have the set there and be able to just dive in and start working.
It was pretty tall, like 1.5 stories maybe?
I think it was maybe
do some tall stuff.
14, 15 feet tall.
Yeah.
So it's a little easier than a standard living room, which has the low ceilings. So that was key.
But still, we were confined to this box and had to make, put things behind the set, always putting things behind so you couldn't see it. But yeah, it was fun.
So let's say, as soon as you finished shooting one piece, you put it behind?
No, it's actually, what was so complicated is that a single set took up all the available space so that it didn't feel too small. But by the time that scene was done, there was no way to build another set without completely destroying the first one. So just like the Alice in Wonderland story where she just goes down the rabbit hole and kind of keeps going, this story can't go backwards. It has to keep finding some new path forward. But it's intense as a filmmaker to be happy with what you have, to know that there's no reshooting, there's no rebuilding.
Yeah, so once you were done with a set, it was done.
It was done. You had to like it or you move on.
Yeah.
Replace it or something, yeah.
So since the opening credits, you can realize that you have an amazing use of art. I've seen, honestly, thousands of films, and I don't think that I've never seen something like that on the opening credits.
Thank you so much.
Where did you have that idea? It was just, how did you came up with that?
That was my project. We couldn't figure out how to start the movie, and we went back and forth, and I came up with this idea, and I laid it out for him, and we said, well, there's no harm in trying it. Let's try it, see if we like it. And the idea was to have people putting things in and see the hand making it, so that you got a feeling of it being handmade, and presenting some of the artifacts that we had used throughout the movie. So when you saw the movie, you'd be like, oh yeah, I saw that in the opening, to tie it together a little bit. And yeah, so we shot it, and then it didn't quite work, so we had to redo the beginning a little bit, but it was a challenge. It was all one continuous shot.
Yeah.
And then it got, fixed. It was a challenge.
It's really interesting because when you start watching anything, whether it's a TV show or a movie, a person's opinion gets formed within 5 seconds. And so there's something really intense about deciding how you're going to sort of start to mesmerize somebody. Yeah. And so Ben Eschbach, who did our score for us, did a tremendous job of just sort of that period style music. And the hope was to let that opening credits not be hurried, but give you time to sort of start to clear your mind of everything and just sink into the experience.
Keep trying to pull people into our fantasy, keep pulling them in a little bit.
Yes. So you just mentioned that the story takes place in somewhat 60s.
Yeah.
And why did you choose that period of time? Anything in particular?
I mean, that is a good question. There is something, I mean, I grew up reading boys' adventure stories from, what is it, kind of antique. I'm not that old, but maybe like Hardy Boys or Nancy Drew. And then there's also a lot of other ones. And there was something kind of magical about that period. But I think the reason it stuck with me is there's something about the time before computers, before even plastic, that just had like a real kind of I don't know, it has a nice atmosphere that feels very tangible. You can really hold on to it without slipping back into movies that are black and white. It feels like there's a window there that feels very I don't know, earnest and kind of yeah, it's a good question. I haven't really thought about why.
I mean, we definitely didn't want to make it modern, I think, and we didn't want to make it so far in the past that it became a period piece. So how do you put it in the past without it being too far ago? Something about that.
And so it was never a choice of making something very exactly 1960, but just we would look at something and we'd say, this feels about right. And there's something really nice about working in kind of a looser way rather than making something very specific to a time.
And how did you choose to work with some models? Because you have some models in the film, right?
Yes.
I think probably my favorite shot of the movie is it's a very small one. It's a very strange one. It's looking outside the nurse's window at police cars leaving. And those police cars are toy Matchbox models. And now that we're in a day of CGI, that could have been done perfect. But it's really just taking a finger on a model and pushing it. And you can tell that it feels very homemade.
Yeah.
And so the line we were trying to find was something that felt like it was made by people, that you could tell that it was built by hand, but it wasn't too rough that you would be pulled out of the story. Right. And that's kind of, that one shot feels like it's right there on that line.
Yeah. Something you a little different.
You can see in that sense that, let's say that you just talked about CGI, and what we realize is that films are getting more and more computer. And right now, I think that everybody is going to shoot with way more computer after the COVID.
Right.
And it's so amazing that you did a film that, for me, is so handicrafted.
Yeah.
You can see that you put such an effort into making it, and at the same time, it feels so realistic.
Yeah.
I mean, the computer is extraordinary in that, we're not still shooting on 35 millimeter. We're not having to take it to a lab. There's a way to work far less expensive and incredibly fast, but it is interesting making sure not to ask the computer to do too much. It's an interesting, I I mean, it's a personal taste question, but yeah, even set extensions, seeing more of the view than what we built, there was a desire to still make physical models, even though they could have been done in the computer much faster. Because you can feel it.
Yeah.
So there is one thing that I'd like to mention to people. I hope they watched the film, or at least they are watching our talk after the film. And I just talked with one director from Spain, and he works with animation, and he said that for him, the reason that he works in films, and he continues to work on it for about 20 years now, is that he wants to take people to an ending that they are not expecting.
Yeah.
And I think that you achieve something with your film, and honestly, this is something that's very rare for me to say, is that you don't know what you're going to see in the next 10 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And there is something interesting about how, as a viewer, when you're watching something, you want to, you want to go somewhere that you haven't been, but you have to be a little bit careful not to just take somebody into a forest and lose them somewhere where they don't know where they're at. And so, but I feel like that since we worked in order and we were writing it as it went, the luxury of that was that we were allowing it to kind of, the characters, as the actors were getting more living in their characters, it was taking on life of its own. And it becomes a joy to wake up and not even be sure myself exactly the direction it's going. Feels pretty great. Though it gets tense at the end when you have to wind it up.
Yeah, it was pretty tense at the end, trying to figure out if we liked that ending. Does that feel like a satisfying end? And does the visuals show what we wanted it to show? The ending we felt, but we couldn't. Is it portraying what we wanted in our minds? So.
And we wanted to just keep going. We wanted to build a train. We wanted
let's just put more at it. More at it. Let's do a train station. Let's do this. Let's do that.
There is one very interesting question here that was sent by an audience. And it also relates to one question that I had written about the spaces that you use in the film. For instance, when he enters in the mattress, that's one of the most amazing sequences in the film. And so he's asking in a totally unrelated, it's interesting because the two questions complement each other. Which place was that under the bedroom? Did you build it for the film?
Oh my goodness. Wes says to me, I want him to go into the mattress. I said, what do you mean? In the mattress? He said, yes. So then he comes next day with this mattress. I said, where did you get the mattress from? I don't know. And then we take the knife to it and just keep cutting at it and take it apart. And then we asked our actor, can you get inside?
Well, yeah, there's a couple things here. The mattress we were able to find and clear out, but when he climbs down in between the walls of the house,
that was art directed.
We built that all.
That was very purposefully built. Yes.
But two things. One is there's something really interesting about, in a fantasy film or sci-fi or anything, the people that live in it are not surprised by the strange things that happen because that's the world that they live in. And so in this world, people aren't raising an eyebrow when they see something unusual. But there's something interesting about how when he goes into the mattress, he doesn't expect it. So even in a fantasy movie, he's taken by surprise. There's a nice little shift there. But the second part that I don't want to forget is the main actor, Andre Fenning, who was the most diligent, committed guy for all 6-7 years, is a parkour teacher. And so in fact, the entire cast is mostly acrobats. The butler comes from Cirque du Soleil. There's an incredible amount of people who know how to move very precisely. And we're such a joy to work with because a lot of people will think of acrobats or clowns in a very narrow sense of just being entertainers or comedians. But these are some of the most specifically hardworking actors that they would have no trouble just doing take after take to get the rhythm, the beats of a scene nice and clean. And coming from an animation background, it was just a real joy to be able to get these scenes to be nice and running smoothly without any messiness in the performance. So my hat is off to Andre.
Yeah, Andre Finning.
You just mentioned 7 years. How long did it took you to shoot the film?
Well, I've been thinking about this for a long time. Too long. In fact, I always thought that there was no way to make it except in animation. But there was one morning that I woke up and I was like, I have to clear this out of my head because it's taking up too much space. So I was like, I'm going to start building in my living room with cardboard and duct tape. And then I met Louise rock climbing, and she heard about what I was doing, and she was...
Give me $50 at the used clothing store, and I will make it for you.
And so I was lucky enough to meet her right at the beginning, but it could have been a whole other story if it was just me and, what is it, a big pile of boxes.
And a box.
In that sense, have you heard of a film called Dave Made a Maze?
You know what's extraordinary is I have, but up on my Vimeo channel, the short film that I did before this was actually called Box World, that is exploring the idea of a complete fantasy world. It's set in just infinite boxes, and so there's something interesting about how these ideas out in the world of different people trying to take something and go with it, and things growing on each other.
Yeah.
But to be honest, I haven't seen it. It's a little too close to home since I was kind of working in that premise. So one of these days, I'll get to it.
It's interesting because, as you mentioned, they worked in a similar process. As soon as they finished one set, they couldn't go back because they were building it all at the same time.
Yeah.
So
there is something exciting about having not getting too precious with something and just, constantly moving forward, because it's so easy to sort of get gummed up. And so that's one way to solve it.
Yeah.
So where did you meet your actors? Because you just mentioned that they come from different backgrounds, and Andre is really an amazing actor, and you can see that he really delivers in the film. And you can see that they, even though they are shooting it nowadays, a story that is supposed to be played, let's say, 50 years ago, sometimes this feels like fake. Do you get me? And no, they are really, really, you can see that they are living in the 60s.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. You're right.
Really
It's not only is it art direction to get rid of the present day, but even in how actors move or how they talk, that you're not reminded of California or of the modern world. But we did an open casting call because the San Francisco Bay Area has a large theater scene, but it's amazing that a lot of people we found through swing dancing, the acrobat circles, it was a lot of, I think what it came down to is just within the network of people, there was enough interesting people that really wanted to be a part of it and were willing to not see it as a job where they're coming in and just doing a day of acting, but essentially come and be part of for lack of a better word, just sort of a family.
Yeah.
I mean, all of the people that worked on it got to know incredibly well. And so there was nothing industry feeling about it. And whether we were lucky or whether that's actually a great way to work, I'd like to think that the next thing that we do, I would only hope that we were able to get that same kind of camaraderie.
Yeah.
How long did the shoot take?
How long did the shoot take? It's interesting. We would, any given scene, starting with a clear loft space, I would start framing. I mean, this is the crew right here. I would start framing the 2x4s, and then actors would come over. And then as we were trying out different things, I would start to get a sense of all the possibilities of the scene. And then Louise would come
would
by and
finish
start
it.
working with props and set dressing, and then we would get into lighting. And so it was each scene sort of became its own short film. And so it was, shooting wasn't nonstop, but shooting would only happen at the end of that month or two of preparation,
Yeah.
where we knew exactly what we wanted.
Yeah.
So
The idea was to make each scene kind of complete in itself visually, so that and when you went to the next one, then it would be again beautiful in itself visually. So you would string it together like a necklace.
Yeah, it's very interesting the thing that you just mentioned about being a collection of short films, because let's say one person could watch one of the segments and be interested in it.
Yeah, that was purposefully done. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And each one, after each short scene was done, there was this interesting challenge to be like, well, what's something that's even more interesting to do next?
Yeah.
And still make sense within the story.
Yeah.
And I think we were always able to find something.
Yeah, Wes had a lot of ideas, and I was just always running to keep up. Can we do it? Can we do it? How do we do it? How do we do it? And that was the joy, really, of making the movie, was solving these problems. Like, okay, we want to show this. How do we do that? How can we do that? And that problem solving was really, that was just the best. That was the reason for me, was the problem solving, how to fix it.
And how did you create the idea of rocks? Is it a subject that interests you? Because it plays such a...
Oh, the crystals?
Yeah, the crystals in general.
Yeah.
I don't know if this concept
without the crystals.
I don't know if this concept exists in Brazil. This term "woo-woo," which means what is it? How do you
very
describe?
New Age.
Very new age. Because
very modern. Very.
Because some people, crystals have a lot of different meanings to a lot of different people.
Mm-hmm.
But there was not obsessed with rocks, but there was something. I think a very early idea early on is there's something enjoyable about the idea of a treasure or something that the main character needs to take away from the story, being just a boulder. There's something
just huge. And how do you, instead of a precious little diamond that you could just put in your pocket,
it's inelegant.
Let's give him something that's huge, and he has trouble moving it, and how does he get it out? And
yeah. And
we thought that was more interesting. Wes's idea was that the treasure was unwielding and huge, but yet he had to have it.
But the other nice thing is having that many years to let the story marinate, is that the rock sort of started taking on
Yes.
It started taking on a lot of different ideas. I don't know. It is an adventure story, but there is a little bit more going on. But what's nice is it's not necessary to look at it a different way. So those rocks mean something a little bit different to the main character than just treasure. I don't know. There's a nice light touch to how many ideas you want to attach to something.
For how long did you work in the film altogether? That would be 7 years? Or because I can see that some of the ideas seem to be, you just used the very nice term marinating. Were you already thinking on them before?
I think that I've been collecting random ideas since film school, and in fact that seems like it's the most exciting way to approach a project. Isn't necessarily breaking it down in a classic 3-act structure, but just jotting down these tiny notes of things that are exciting. And so those notebooks have been filling up. Yeah. So when it came time to structure a story, it was nice to have just a library of ideas to reach on and grab.
There was a lot of concept art to go on. I mean, you had just a lot of art to go on, concepts that to look at and go, oh yeah, that's what we want it to look like. So.
But to your original question, be honest, it's been long enough that I forget exactly when we started. I would have to check my email to find out the date of when I put out the first casting call.
Too long.
It's been a while. But again, it's yeah. I wouldn't change a thing, but maybe I should go a little faster next time. We'll see how well that works.
In a way, would you say that the ending of the film connects to your relationship to the film?
It gets personal. If you're living in your set, it gets very personal very fast. It's also, yeah. I mean, sometimes when I watch it, it's not that it feels how would I put this? It's not that it feels vulnerable, but there's a lot of me and a lot of how I think and I'm sure that there's a lot of what Louise brings to it, that you're able to, all those choices. Yeah. If it's an army of people that makes a movie, all those choices get sort of evened down at its neutral. But since the only choices were choices I made and she made,
it felt very personal. Yeah.
It's an extension of us.
Yeah. And I think that this is something that makes the film so unique, because sometimes when you work, you just mentioned a huge group of people, everybody's chipping in. But when you do something like, I remember the first time I saw the film, I was like, okay, here's his credit, here is her credit, and okay.
Yeah. And what's great is we were able to find a space between us where we both understood what was being built. So there was never any argument. There's something really nice, and it feels right when everything just sort of flows. Even though we took a lot of time with it, it was because it was so enjoyable to just live in that world. It never felt like there was a race or it was like running a marathon where like there was never like a how do we finish this quickly? And that's, again, another really good sign that the right choices were being made, I hope.
Please.
And there was never a question of, are we going to finish it? There was always, we knew we were going to finish it. That was never in question. Sometimes our processes were different. He would do things in a different way that I wouldn't do them. But the end result that we are different, I think, made the movie better. And we appreciated each other's differences because we were like, oh, yes, I wouldn't have thought to do that. And now I love it, So it was really a good cooperation between us. And
one thing, I really don't think you would have such a uniquely crafted film if you have a timetable. If you have, I need to deliver this in 6 months.
While there was no timetable, the one interesting concern, which comes back to you, is that I had no idea what we had because it wasn't built in the mold of anything else. And so I didn't know if there was anywhere where to put it in the world where anybody would be. I had no idea if anybody would get something out of it. I don't know if that sounds strange, but when you're in the middle of it, you sort of, and you're not making something specifically to please somebody, you kind of lose sight of whether you're just, but if you personally love it, whether you're the only person who loves it. And
maybe we will be the only ones that love it. We don't know.
So when you contacted me and wanted to put it in Fantaspoa, I was like, this is the most amazing thing that it's leaving home and it's taking on a life of its own. So it is with much appreciation.
Yeah.
Oh, the appreciation is mutual, believe me. I'm very happy to have such a unique film in the festival. And I think that it goes back to what you just mentioned, that when that Hispanic director I told you, he said that the reason why he tries to create a different ending and a different story is because he just recycling and sequels and the same thing being made over and over again. And even though your film might not please a great audience, or the audience might take a long time to know it, I think that the ones that get to know the film and the people that fall in love with it will really love it. It will mean something to them.
Good.
That is the hope. That is the It's nice that that's out of my hands. It's nice when the work is done and you're able to just set it out, and then you're letting people come to it as they see fit. But I don't know. I don't know if this is fair, but I always thought that this was like the perfect story for somebody to see kind of late at night, maybe even by themselves, and just because that's the way I see the story myself, something to sort of fall asleep like a dream where you're not quite sure if you're remembering it or if you're making it up. And but it's not really up to me to decide how people get to see it. But I hope that there's some that people will connect.
And even the part that you mentioned about the short films inside the film, let's say if you fall asleep in the first 15 minutes, you can imagine, let's say, a film when you wake up that's probably going to be so different from the ways that the film takes. And that's so neat.
That's good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't predict that it would go in that direction. We just kept making one little thing we liked, and then the next we liked, and then the next we liked. You know, we really didn't predict how it was going to end. But the question we asked each other a lot was, do you like it? Well, do you like it? In the end, okay, it looks nice, but do you like it? You know, and keep asking yourself if it's hitting all the things that you want to say, you know.
I'm very glad you like it. I loved it. So, is there anything else you would like to say to the Brazilian fans?
Good question. I mean, we covered a lot there, but I just wanted to I wanted to thank you, João, Brazil, the Fantaspoa Festival, and it's just a true honor to be a part of it. And I can't wait to see what comes of it.
Thank you so much, Louise. Thanks so much, Wes. Your work is amazing. I hope you continue to create films and art for many, many years, because what you do honestly inspire us to continue with the festival.
Thank you.
Yay.
That is very sweet of you to say.
That's very sweet. Yes, well, we continue to support independent film and find those beautiful gems out there. You know, I think that that's important as a society too. So.
Thank you, guys. It was a pleasure.
All right.
Do you want to
Thanks again, and take care.
Okay.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.